The first on point is on why did the Vande Mataram debate take place in Parliament? The second on point is unchecked commercialization behind Arpora tragedy in Goa. Let's take a quick look at the headlines. Kerala government to appeal against acquittal of actor Dilip in the 2017 sexual assault case. Law Minister P. Raji says decision follows talks with CM Pinarayi Vijayan, adding that the state stands firmly with the survivor. DMK to introduce impeachment motion against Madras High Court Justice G.R. Swaminathan after judge's order in Karthigai Deepam case. DMK says order may trigger communal tensions. Supreme Court expresses concern over controversial and anti-women orders passed by courts across the country in rape and sexual assault cases. May issue guidelines to high courts, says Chief Justice Suryakant. Thailand launches air strikes in Cambodia with both sides trading blame for renewed fighting on the disputed border that has killed 4 Cambodian civilians and a Thai soldier. Parliament resumes some normalcy with the Vande Mataram debate. The debate precedes Tuesday's electoral reform debate. This Vande Mataram debate is part of BJP's larger pitch on decolonisation and setting the record straight, or setting the record of history straight. Though many would accuse BJP of distorting historical facts to suit current electoral politics. I will leave this to the audience. First, let me give you the lay of the land. The sum total of Prime Minister's speech was that Vande Mataram was let down by the Congress because of Muslim League's objection to it. Full song was broken into parts because conservative Muslims objected to it, though not all Muslims are opposed to it. Argument is that Muslims saw India as Watan and not as motherland, and Congress wanted to paper over this issue during the colonial struggle lest Muslim League became more powerful. Ultimately, it did. The first compromise led to the final compromise, and that is partition of the country. This was argued by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Also, the song in a way got demoted. The assumption is that it could have been the national anthem.
आज जब हम वंदे मातरम के 150 वर्ष का पर्व मना रहे हैं, चर्चा कर रहे हैं, तो हमें उन परिस्थितियों को भी हमारी नई पीढ़ियों को जरूर बताना हमारा दायित्व है, जिससे के वजह से वंदे मातरम के साथ विश्वासघात किया गया। जिन्ना के विरोध के 5 दिन बाद ही 20 अक्टूबर को नेहरू जी ने नेताजी सुभाष बाबू को चिट्ठी लिखी। उस चिट्ठी में जिन्ना की भावना से नेहरू जी अपनी सहमति जताते हुए कि वंदे मातरम की, ये जो उन्होंने सुभाष बाबू को लिखा है, वंदे मातरम की आनंद मठ वाली पृष्ठभूमि मुसलमानों को इरिटेट कर सकती है। मैं नेहरू जी का कोट पढ़ता हूं। नेहरू जी कहते हैं, मैंने वंदे मातरम गीत का बैकग्राउंड पढ़ा है। नेहरू जी फिर लिखते हैं, मुझे लगता है कि ये जो बैकग्राउंड है इससे मुस्लिम भड़केंगे।
Nehru, on the other hand, said the following in Vande Mataram, and I am summing it up for the viewers. And the most important thing is, how did late Jawaharlal Nehru compared Vande Mataram with the Jana Gana Man, which is our national anthem? And these are some of the quotes of the Prime Minister Nehru. For example, from a cabinet note, May 21st, 1948. So he said Vande Mataram is not feasible as a national anthem. He said Janagan Man has been appreciated in foreign countries as well as India. He said Vande Mataram is intimately connected with our freedom struggle. He said we are emotionally attached to Vande Mataram. He also said a song which represents poignant longing for freedom is not necessarily a song which fits in with achievements of freedom struggle. Then he went on to say that a national anthem should be something of victory and fulfillment and not past struggle. Vande Mataram's tune does not suit orchestral or band rendering. Now there are a couple of questions here which I'll be putting out. Is the idea of nationalism at the heart of this debate one? Or is it about imagining India as a mother that conservative Muslims objected to? Now before I play out the bites of the other opposition leaders, let me introduce my guests. I am joined by Arun Anand, author and senior journalist, Hindol Sen Gupta, historian, Dr. Ashwini Kumar, professor from TIS, and Makarand Paranjpe, director of education, and honorary at Sri Aurobindo Chair, Vidya University. Thank you all of you. He joins me from Tampa, if I am getting it right this time, professor, not Miami. Now let me put two other things in perspective for our viewers. Now it is very important to remember that Tagore published the text of Janagana Mana song in 1912 on the pages of Tattva Bodhini Patrika, and he described it as a Brahma Sangeet. I'm quoting the text, and let me read out one part of what Nehru felt in comparing Vande Mataram with Janagana Man. A national anthem is of course a form of words, but it is even more so a tune or a musical score. It is played by orchestras and bands frequently and only very seldom sung. The music of the national anthem is therefore the most important factor. It is to be full of life as well as dignity and should be capable of being effectively played by orchestras, big and small, and by military bands and pipes. It is to be played not only in India but abroad and should be as such, is generally to be appreciated in both these places. Janagana Man appears to satisfy these tests. Vande Mataram, for all its beauty and history, is not an easy tune for orchestral or band rendering. It is rather plaintive and mournful and repetitive. It is particularly difficult for foreigners to appreciate it as a piece of music. It has not got those peculiar distinctive features which Janagana Man has. It represents very truthfully the period of our struggle in longing, not so much the fulfillment thereof in the future. Now I am opening this conversation now. The first question goes to Makarand Paranjpe. Sir, why are we today, after independence, discussing Vande Mataram?
Exactly. I also agree. I think there are many more important things to debate and discuss in the parliament. I think we should celebrate the 150th anniversary of Vande Mataram. It's a tremendous composition. It's a mantra for national awakening. And in fact, Sri Aurobindo called Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay a rishi, a modern rishi. And of course, Vande Mataram was the rallying cry across the country. People went to the gallows singing it or even just saying Vande Mataram. Now, to accuse the Congress in, 1937 of perfidy, appeasement, I think it's a bit irrelevant, to go back in time. Because remember, in 1937, they were still trying to get a united India. And if they thought that compromising by not singing the whole anthem, or rather the national song as it came to be called in 1951 in the Constituent Assembly, it would be a compromise. In fact, do you know that even Janagana Mana was objected to? People said that, it's a paean to, King George who was visiting India. All these songs are controversial, but should we rake up these controversies? And I might also say that this sort of knee-jerk attack on Jawaharlal Nehru, hasn't it gone too far? I mean, can we keep blaming, earlier regimes and leaders for all our problems? I think we should look forward. In fact, I would sort of urge younger people to read Anandamath and actually try to understand the deeper meanings of Vande Mataram itself, where the nation, Mother India, is not only Bhavani, but she's Saraswati, she is Lakshmi, and she's Durga. Now, if we really go into this very deeply, then we will see that Bankim is invoking the various bodies of the nation, the physical body, the subtle body, as well as the transcendental spiritual body of the nation, to suggest that the soul of India is eternal. I think these are the things we should focus on, rather than raking up the past, attacking, this one and that one, and I think wasting, if I may even put it that way, the precious time of the Indian Parliament.
Okay. Now, let me quote Rudhanshu Mukherjee, the book he wrote on the history of the national song. Hindol, this is for you. He says, Janagana Man, perhaps because it sprang from the fountainhead of Tagore's piety, had embedded in the idea of destiny controlled by an eternal supreme entity. Every phase of India's history and civilization carried the imprimatur of this divine will. It was possibly in this spirit that Nehru had unforgettably spoken of India's independence as a tryst with destiny. Now, with this, Nehru also, in a letter to B.C. Roy, he argued, and he said, from the point of view, again he said, from the point of view of the foreign countries, there is undoubtedly a flaw. Whether Janagan Man is adopted or not, I doubt very much if Vande Mataram could be adopted. As for the words, Vande Mataram contains language which most people do not understand. Certainly, I do not understand. Now, this is what he is writing, so I am quoting it verbatim, trying to contextualize in the text, because I don't have his audio bites in Dole. So my question to you is, are we looking at partition, or are we looking at our national songs and national anthem as an unfinished business? Is it an unfinished business, sir?
Well, living in Delhi as I do at the moment, I really think we should be discussing why we cannot breathe because of the air pollution in Delhi. Having said that, and I think that would be really important, I think, and urgent. Having said that, let me also say that this Nehruvian point of view that, well, Vande Mataram was not really adequate and we only play the music, supposedly national anthems, all that is truly bunkum, and this is the problem. This is why Nehru gets critiqued today. You see, think about it, Makranji is sitting in the United States, and the US made the fact that it was the land of the free and the home of the brave as a fundamental idea of their very existence, their strategic thinking, their policy making, their narrative building, their grand narrative and their grand strategy. And why even go to the US? Look at right next door in Indian subcontinent, the Bangladeshis don't just sing Amar Shonar Bangla, they at least for a time, they really meant when they said Amar Shonar Bangla, that this is the golden land that they valued, and their nationalist thinking came from that point of view, certainly in the early 1970s after they won independence. So, this is why Nehruvian thinking gets a lot of criticism. I have no objection to the entire song being adopted. I think it's a great song. It, as Makranji was saying, young men, people like Khudiram Bose went to the gallows singing this great song. I really think if many more people read Anandamath, they would understand the beauty, the power, and the legacy of Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay, which is not only forgotten in India, by the way, it is even forgotten in Bengal. So it's a real tragedy. I think many, many more people should read Bankim, should read Anandamath, and should, value Vande Mataram. And if the Indian state, in its wisdom, decided to adopt the entire song today in 2025 as our entire national song, I would be most pleased and happy. Having said that, I do think that, there is also, it's also time in our national history to really discuss very urgent things, including our security, our, environmental security and other things.
Okay. Arun, Prime Minister also said one thing. I was going through his speech again and again, and he said India is not a piece of land. He said India is not a piece of land, and he said Vande Bharat connects the entire cultural, and this is my word, he did not use it, the DNA, this is what I understand, the DNA of this historical land. You can call it Bharatvarsh, you can call it Bharat Mata, but this historical land. So he said it's not a piece of land. When Vande Bharat was being rendered, it imagined India the way it should be as part of its cultural history. So am I supposed to be looking at from the context of what the Prime Minister has been saying, the word decolonization, or is it just pure play politics as what was happening in parliament, where people were starting to speak in context of West Bengal elections?
Karthikeya, just to correct you, though you are moderating this discussion, you I think incidentally mentioned Vande Bharat instead of
Vande Mataram. I'm sorry. Vande Mataram. I'm sorry.
No, just for the record's sake. See, there are two aspects to it. One is the political debate which is happening on it. I'll tell you, it is an outcome of basically, Newton's third law. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. The way Congress glorified Nehru, so there was bound to be a, opposite reaction to that when an opposition government would come to power. So what Congress did, and now, what you call the karma, the law of karma, Congress created basically two categories that most of its leaders, basically Indira Gandhi or Nehru, so they were all like gods, they cannot be questioned. So now I would say it in Hindi, it can be best said in Hindi, that now we have in current political discourse, there are two categories as far as our past is concerned. या तो आप भगवान हैं या आप शैतान हैं. So there is no, a moderate basically kind of a ground that, these were all political leaders. There were complex issues. There were complex times. But this is an outcome of a pushback. Basically, the pendulum is now swinging the other way. One. Second, it is basically, a very, why BJP is doing it? Because the ideological framework it has and its ideological mentor, Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, the ideological framework they have, they want to basically move towards, when you talk about decolonization, it's a much used term, but what do they mean by that? They mean basically they don't want to look at Indian nationalism or what you call Hindu nationalism as a political, nationalism. They want to basically, what they're talking about, what Prime Minister was talking about was that Vande Mataram is a civilizational anthem and it is basically a manifestation of spiritual nationalism. And as Professor Paranjpe also said, it was actually Rishi Aurobindo. Basically, if you read basically in 1894, I think around 1894 itself, he wrote, when India will get independence and when, the political leaders will stand. So they are not going to get, that respect basically which this Bengali gentleman, Bankim Chandra, is going to get. So it's a move from political nationalism to, spiritual nationalism, and it is also a significant shift because most of the opposition has made Savarkar the poster boy of, BJP and the RSS ideology, but their ideology is much closer to, Aurobindo's spiritual nationalism. So I think this whole debate they are taking, they have kicked off this debate and whatever happened in parliament today. So it's basically they are talking about spiritual nationalism, and I think they want to basically, take the ideological framework of Bharat towards that.
Okay, Professor Ashwini Kumar, when Vande Mataram, historically, when it became part of the, if I may, became the lingo of the people who were part of the freedom struggle, Janagan Man was not even being conceived. It became part of the project of the state. It became part of the debate in the Constituent Assembly. But Vande Mataram's evolution was far more organic and, if I may use the word, even plebeian,
Yeah, I think, Karthikeya, we need to really, deconstruct the very idea of Vande Mataram, like the idea of India. And we need to locate it, in a much deeper, not just in a political term or ideological term, but I would say much deeper in the sense of, the psychological consciousness, and that to be imbued with the civilizational ethos. As a poet, as a practicing poet also, who works across languages, and I'm sure Professor, Paranjpe would pay a little more attention to that aspect of the collective consciousness, speaking through translational ability of the language and the poetry perhaps. I'm looking at Vande Mataram, most significantly as a signifier, not perhaps in the Lacanian theoretical sense, but in a people's consciousness. That signifier is actually, a lyrical ode to motherland. Are we forgetting that Vande Mataram has been conceptualized since ages Bankim Chandra only documented it at a particular historical juncture of 1875. The feminine consciousness, our civilization's greatest strength is the feminist energy, the Kali. I mean, this Kali is a secular Kali, My feminist friends are using elsewhere, even in the US, Kali as a symbol of, against all kinds of injustices. So we need to, look at, it's not a simple political project, Janagan Mangan may be a political project, but Vande Mataram is a far larger, solidarity project. Earlier I mentioned here on your channel, Vande Mataram as a people's song, So what's wrong with, equalizing and giving the status that a people's song requires today? I mean, that's a much more important. I'm also coughing in Delhi, but when I cough, I'm also thinking about a much larger consciousness, the spirit pervading across the universe, That's more important, And perhaps singing and raising the voice of Vande Mataram will heal us from this physical element also.
Okay, let me play out one bite of Priyanka Gandhi, and my another question, which is for all my panelists, would be, because Prime Minister used the word betrayal, you have used restoring the status. My question is, can the clock be set back? I mean, so can it be reworked? Is it really possible? Are we thinking in context of a second republic? First, let me play out the bite. I'll come to you. Yes, I'll come to you, Mr. Sengupta. Yes.
इसकी वजह क्या है? इसकी वजह क्या है? हम आज यहाँ ये बहस क्यों कर रहे हैं? हमारा राष्ट्रगीत है, इस पर क्या बहस हो सकती है? हम ये बहस यहाँ आज दो वजहों से कर रहे हैं। पहला कि बंगाल का चुनाव आ रहा है, हमारे प्रधानमंत्री अपनी भूमिका निभाना चाहते हैं उसमें, और दूसरी वजह ये है, ये मकसद है, पुरानी मकसद इनकी, अध्यक्ष महोदय, कि जिन्होंने स्वतंत्रता की लड़ाई लड़ी, जिन्होंने देश के लिए बड़ी बड़ी कुर्बानियां दी, उन पर सरकार नए आरोप लादने का मौका चाहती है। देश का ध्यान फिर से जनता के ज्वलंत मुद्दों से भटकाना चाहती है। यही एक मकसद है आपका मकसद है कि हम फिर से उसी अतीत में मंडराते रहें, उसी की तरफ हम देखते रहें जो हो चुका है, जो बीत चुका है, क्योंकि ये सरकार वर्तमान और भविष्य की ओर देखना ही नहीं चाहती, वे इस काबिल ही नहीं रही।
Mr. Sengupta, you wanted to come in, then I'll go to Professor Paranjpe. Hindol Sengupta. Can you please unmute yourself?
My apologies. Yes, my apologies. Number one, may I just say, and everybody knows this, certainly Makranji would also know this, I am as far away from a leftist as is possible. But today, let me adopt a Marxist point of view to say this. It's all very well to say that while I am coughing and my elderly parents are not being able to breathe in Delhi, I shall rise to a higher consciousness by singing Vande Mataram. This is all, this is all very fanciful thinking. And I don't think as citizens, living real lives, battling with real challenges, we should be saying things like this. Having said that, I am deeply devoted to the idea of India as a civilizational state, but a civilizational state or a Ram Rajya requires a move from a low trust society, which we have at the moment. It's getting better, but we still have at the moment, to a high trust society. And that high trust society means that it should be palpably felt in the everyday lives of the citizens. Now again, I reiterate, I would be delighted if the entire song of Vande Mataram is adopted today. That is wonderful, and it would be very, very joyous for me. However, to say things like, while we are battling air pollution and children are getting lung disease, we should all be, rising to some higher consciousness, is frankly, this is why it is because of things like this that Marxist, consciousness, even though it has killed millions of people through history, still exists even today, because people say things like this.
Okay. Professor Paranjpe, I have two questions. One, the whole idea of nationalism around which this debate is being held, Gurudev, when he wrote Jana Gana Mana, his idea of nationalism also changed over a period of time. From nationalism to humanism, one that is very much visible in his writing. And for him to conceive, first of all, Jana Gana Mana as a Brahma Sangeet, that's the another aspect. And the third aspect, sir, is on which I really want you to speak is, do you really feel that the song was betrayed? It became a precursor to partition, and to complete it and all, I have realized that Nehru gets most of the boot. Indira Gandhi never does, barring emergency. This really, as a journalist, I'm very surprised. Nehru gets said every time, but Indira Gandhi, barring emergency, escapes the criticism.
Yes, well, I want to go back to your point about the Second Republic. I think you're absolutely right. And if the Second Republic is going to be based on spiritual nationalism, I would really welcome it, because it is slightly different from the kind of nationalism that we associate, at least, with Hindutva. But if it is spiritual nationalism, and if it's so much a part of our DNA, it should actually be inclusive. It shouldn't be divisive. It shouldn't be attacking one part or the other. And certainly in parliamentary democracy, there is a space for opposition, isn't it? You cannot delegitimate everybody else except yourself and your own ideological ancestry. And going back to what Hindolji was saying, I think he's absolutely right. When you say Sujalam, Sufalam, Malaya ja Sheetalam, where is the Sheetala Malaya? It's all smog and it's all, lung damaging air. So if you love Mother India, we have to clean up the air, we have to clean up the rivers, the waters which are sacred to Hindus. I mean, we can't disassociate, as I think Hindol rightly said, we can't dissociate the spiritual aspects of loving our Mother India, Bhavani Bharati, with, her physical form, which is in such a poor shape, as Bankim himself showed in the first of the three images of the mother, where she was emaciated and really starving. I mean, Mother India today may not be emaciated and starving. We've lifted, millions and millions out of poverty. But, I mean, look at the waters, look at the air, look at the quality of life. So we have to respect Mother India, not just ideologically, really, but also environmentally. So this is an important point. Now, coming back to what you said about who gets the shtick, whether it's Indira Gandhi, who inserted socialist, secular into the constitution. Obviously, we should remove that. If you ask me, nobody in India, as I know, is socialist except ideologically. I mean, everybody loves money, everybody loves capitalism in that sense. And secular was something that Dr. Ambedkar himself did not want. It's also a sort of imposition, because I guess if you want an Indian equivalent, we would like a dharmic nationalism. And, let me also say another interesting, tidbit for our viewers. Do you know that the Ministry of Home Affairs in India has also permitted a shorter version of Jana Gana Mana, where only the opening stanzas are sung? And this is for the army mess. Before they say cheers, they can just sing the first couplet of Jana Gana Mana and then proceed with the libation. So I don't think these are matters of great, debate and controversy. And of course, I would love the entire song to be understood and sung and appreciated, especially by the young. But I think that a spiritual nationalism, which invokes, the Chitti as the great ideologue of the BJP and RSS said, the Chitti of the nation. If this is what we want, then we should say, Ma Tujhe Salam also. Why not Vande Mataram alone? We should also try to include others and bring in this reverential aspect of the motherland, as Deen Dayal Upadhyay said so beautifully, whom also we don't read, I'm afraid. We worship, but we don't read. The Chitti of the nation, the spirit of the nation, the soul of the nation, it has to be inclusive. Thank you.
Okay. Professor Kumar, was it appeasement, or does it reflect a Eurocentric view of Jawaharlal Nehru? The perspective changes. If you look at the way he decided to go forward with Chandigarh, Bhakra Nangal, the Gothic landscape, which came up. when he was asked where should it be built, if we look at the landscape history, he said no, it should not be in Ambala, though it was part of the Ambala district. It should be completely new, from nothingness. So the villages were pooled together, and so came up. So what we discuss right now is part of larger view of Jawaharlal Nehru. For example, the word he used, the band, the orchestra, the foreign. So, is it appeasement or the way man was built?
See, Karthikeya, I guess Jawaharlal was...
or you can say I completely get it wrong, I have no issues.
No, you're fine. I guess, although, he's a very strange mixture of tradition and modernity, particularly a Western kind of modernity, but he was not far removed from the tradition also. What I find it amusing, a bit of, kind of problematic with the stance that Nehru took on in terms of the composition, in terms of the, if you look at, Vande Mataram was composed in Deshrag and all, and a lot of poets, a lot of composers, so understanding this operatic beauty of Vande Mataram that, Nehru missed out is a bit of a strange and also a little problematic. So placing in that context where...
Let me read out a line, sir. Let me read out, this is Jawaharlal Nehru. The real, and this is his comparison, not my words. That is why I have decided not to have any political guests today. The real significance of the national anthem is perhaps more abroad than in home country. Past experience has shown us that Jana Gana Mana tune has been greatly appreciated and admired abroad. It is very distinctive and there is a certain life and movement in it. It's like Western music, like Tchaikovsky, Bach, Then it was thought by some people that Vande Mataram tune, with all its very great attraction and historical background, was not easily suitable for being played by orchestras in foreign countries, and there was not enough movement in it. It seems therefore that while Vande Mataram should continue to be the national song par excellence in India, the national anthem tune should be that of Jana Gana Mana, the wording of Jana Gana Mana to be suitably altered to fit in with existing circumstances. And it's not a pick and choose.
Karthikeya, it seems that what I'm trying to convey, that Nehru was familiar with the opera, Nehru was familiar with various, music coming from Allahabad, Prayagraj. Nehru was also familiar with, Indian classical tradition, Carnatic tradition, but not well-grounded, and that's the reason perhaps Nehru, did not realize that Tagore himself, composed, Vande Mataram and considered it perhaps a higher consciousness, That's where I'm, differing with, materialist interpretation of the disease and the problems of the civilization, because I'm looking at more, more, psychologically, emotionally, So if you look at, that's where, Nehru failed to understand and perhaps, maybe ignored the reality, the historical reality that in the case of partition of Bengal, 1905, I remember, historical fact, Barasil now in Bangladesh, where thousands of people, including Hindus and Muslims, marched together singing Vande Mataram. That's where I'm suggesting that Vande Mataram is not mere a material expression, is much larger expression of, feminist consciousness, higher energy, and also inclusive spirit of the civilization. When we invoke the spirit of mother, this mother is not, defined by any particular identity. That's the beauty of this Vande Mataram, composed in 1875, later becoming part of the Anand Mat, the bliss, So we have to recognize both. Nehru was, with his nasal sound, Tryst of Destiny sounds like a poem, a beautiful poetry. As a poet, we are often confronted with the reality. Can a poem bring out revolution? I would say yes. At least, consciousness level, revolution will happen, in a happening. I mean, that's the way Pablo Neruda, to our own poets in India from various languages. And let's not forget, Subramaniam Bharati, the great poet himself composed and gave us a magnificent, So let me conclude here where Nehru missed out, Nehru missed out on one, the memory part and the music part, and that too Indian music part of the Vande Mataram.
Okay, then Arun, do you agree with this? Again, another response of Pandit ji to Shyama Prasad Mukherjee. Fortunately, I have been able to get my hands on. He said, Vande Mataram is of course intimately connected with our entire national struggle. We are all emotionally attached to it and will continue to be so attached. It will be in any event remain as a famous national song, but I personally think that a song which represents poignant longing for freedom is not necessarily a song which fits in with the achievements of freedom. Jana Gana Mana has an element of triumph and fulfillment about it, which a lot of people have written in context of Bharat Bhagya Vidhata. Sir, your comments.
Kartike, the issue is that, the Nehruvian paradigm or the Nehruvian lens. So Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, so he was not an original thinker. He was a good curator of ideas. Because when he studied in Oxford, so at that time, there was a lot of influence of Marxism there. So when he came back to India, so he was a curator of ideas, and he could not understand the difference between religion and dharma. He also could not understand the civilizational march of Bharat, which basically had extended, beyond millenniums. So and I'll give you an evidence. All the original thinkers which were in Congress, they parted ways from Congress because Nehru could not adjust with them. You look at Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, you look at Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, you look at Acharya Narendra Dev, look at Kripalani. So all these people, even Jayaprakash Narayan, so all these people who were original, genuine thinkers, who had an original thought, who had an understanding of India's civilizational ethos, so they parted ways with, Nehru. So if you have to look at basically, so that's why Nehru was looking at Jan Gan Man from a perspective, Western perspective of the concept of nation state, basically, their concept of nation state. Whereas the rest of the people, they were looking at Vande Mataram from that civilizational lens, which was deeply rooted in basically the concept of spiritual nationalism, and which is an unbroken, march of Bharat.
Okay, so Professor Paranjpe, what is the, in terms of aesthetics, difference between Jana Gana Mana and Vande Bharat, if I may ask you, sir?
No, Vande Mataram.
Vande Mataram and Jana Gana Mana.
And Arunji, Nehru studied in Cambridge and was a Fabian socialist. Anyhow, to come back to your point, you said it, Kartikeji. Actually, this is Brahmo Geet, it's a part of, and Rabindra Sangeet is not entirely containable in the Brahmo framework, by the way. It spills over, because I think Tagore was a great genius. He was a incredible visionary, apart from being an author, poet, educationist, novelist, dramatist, etc. So I think that it also has a transcendental quality, just as Vande Mataram does, frankly. But as a poet myself, as a critic, poet, and as somebody who tries to understand very deeply what India stands for, I think that the comparisons are odious. I think that Vande Mataram is much deeper, is, as I already hinted, quoting Sri Aurobindo, citing Sri Aurobindo, Vande Mataram is a mantra. I don't think Jana Gana Mana is a mantra. So Vande Mataram has that quality of resonance, and it can awaken the spirit of the nation, like a mantra can. And its resonance is beyond just its verbal meaning. It has a vibration which can awaken the nation, and the nation does need to be awakened. Because again, as Sri Aurobindo said, India, you said it, India is not a piece of land. You said it quoting the Prime Minister. Yes. India is much more. It's not, a zameen ka tukda. It's really a movement in the evolution of humanity itself. That is what Bharat, which is to shed the light. It is to spread the light. And all our great freedom, leaders, Gandhiji, Sri Aurobindo, you name them, each one of them says that India rises not just for itself, it rises for humanity. And I think this is the spirit of the nation that we should try to capture today. Okay, let me take a closing comment from Professor Ashwini Kumar.
the aesthetic difference between Vande Mataram and Jana Gana Man? And do you agree with Makranji that it's a mantra?
I fully agree, and in fact I am adding to it. My addition is following as a political scientist too. As I have mentioned elsewhere, perhaps on your channel, that if you praise Mother, Vande Mataram, and link it to Bharat Bhagya Vidata, I think that's the aesthetic linkage also, and that linkage is very important to be recognized. If Janagan Mangan has a juridical and the legal import, on the other hand, if you look at aesthetically, Vande Mataram is far deeper. It has a hymnal, mimetic and mythic quality, and that is why it became a clarion call for revolutionaries, including Khudiram Bose. And I believe that if somewhere Gen Z is listening to this Vande Mataram and singing, I'm sure Bharat Bhagya Vidata will change, And that is why on the 150th, this celebration, this is not a disruption. This is a celebration of India's civilizational spirit. That's how I would close it.
Okay. Thank you all of you. I think today I'm a very happy man to listen to all such comments, and I'm really happy to have a meaningful conversation on an issue like this, which gets drowned in political banality. Thank you all of you for joining me. So this is all I had on point 1. In on point 2, we're going to talk about the Goa development mess and what had happened in Arapura, but after a short break.
खेलता है, झूलता उछलता है, दौड़ता कभी कभी दौड़ कर आता है, आगे आगे बढ़ता है इंडिया।